how do you start anything? You fish around for some ideas, and then you toss them away. You say that sucks, until finally you get to something and you go, oh, that doesn't suck so bad. Let me try this. What would happen if I did this to it? That's actually a little game I play a lot when it comes to composing, and that's the what if game. What would happen if I did this, that, and the other thing? So that plays a lot into it. I've often described composing as a biological function. It's something that I feel the necessity to do. And very often I'm looking for an excuse to do it more than anything. So when somebody calls me and says, hey, I need a piece for my orchestra, my band, for my trio, whatever, and would you be interested in writing it? Chances are I'll say, yeah, sure, let's talk about it. Yeah, please.
How do you get over like creative mental blocks?
Yeah, that's a problem. Sometimes you can't. Sometimes you just have to stop what you're doing, walk away, take a walk outside if you can, do some exercise, make dinner, whatever it is you do to distract yourself from the specific thing you're working on. And then come back to it another time and see if you can find another way into the piece and figure out what went wrong.
Okay, so a lot of us are feeling unmotivated during this quarantine, and it's becoming harder and harder to get our work done. So how do you
welcome to the rest of us.
Yeah, so how do you fight through being unmotivated or not particularly feeling great, like not wanting to do it?
It's tough. It's tough. It's absolutely tough. You just want to lie around and, as Keith mentioned, watch Netflix or sit on the couch and eat chocolates or whatever. But that's not what you're doing now, is it? No. No. How do you motivate yourself? Deadlines help. Either you're given a deadline or you can self-impose a deadline. I will do this by such and such a time on such and such a date. It actually works. It doesn't seem like it would, but it does. If you say to yourself, okay, I'm choosing to have this done by this date, you'd be surprised at how much your brain will say, yes, let's do that. Let's get it done by that. External deadlines are even better because you can't control those. But at least with one that you set up, you stand a chance of getting something done. Another thing you can do is very simple. You can give yourself a treat at the end, whatever that treat might be, whether it's a walk outside or a phone call with a friend or whatever you want to do.
In writing your pieces, do you occasionally meet with your band and just like collaboratively like come up with your thoughts together on what type of notes each section should play for like the woodwinds, the brass, percussion, stuff like that?
That goes back to what I was talking about before, doing your homework, finding out what the instruments can do. I once had a commission from a saxophonist, Gary Louie, to write a piece. And I spent, I think it was 2 days with him, working out all of the things that he does that no other player can do. Another time I was commissioned by the US Naval Academy Band. And the conductor had me come down and literally meet the band and listen to them and get a sense of what, how they sound and where their strengths are and where their weaknesses supposedly are. They didn't have any weaknesses, but according to them, they did. And getting a sense of who I was writing for. So yes, I do that if I can.
So,
Hi, Kelly.
hi. Was there any point in your life that you just kind of knew, like, hey, I want to compose music, or like, how did you choose to go into this as a living?
Okay, those are actually a couple of questions. So I'm going to try to answer all of them briefly. All right. I pretty much have always made music. You know, this is going to sound pretty pretentious, but I swear this is true. My parents told me as I was growing up that when I was 2 years old, I was singing on pitch. I was singing along with the radio exactly what was being sung or played or whatever. So I was always involved with music. But becoming a musician was a whole nother ballgame. When I was 13, my parents asked me what I wanted as a present for my bar mitzvah. And keep in mind, I'm a lot older than you guys. So I said a guitar. I wanted a guitar because the Beatles were very popular. Simon and Garfunkel were very popular. And this is, I was really getting into that. And they all played guitars. And I wanted to play guitar. So that became my first instrument. Now, how I got into classical composing, that's a whole other ballgame. I was in high school. And by high school, I had decided I needed to learn an orchestral instrument. So I took up the violin. My school offered lessons in violin. And then eventually, once you got to a certain point, you were put into an orchestra. I got to sit in the second violin section. If you know anything about how an orchestra is set up, you have the firsts, the seconds, the violas, the cellos, the basses are off here somewhere, the winds and the brass are in the back, and the percussion's all over the place. Well, I sat in the second violins. I got to hear everybody. I got to hear all the harmonies. I got to hear all the inner lines as well as the melody. The first violins always got the melody, but I got to play all the cool parts in the seconds. So that was one thing that turned me on to it. The other thing that turned me on to composing was, again, in high school, they offered at the time a special class in music theory. And I figured, you know what, I know I'm going to become some sort of musician, maybe I should take a music theory class. So I did. And one day I walked into the theory class. I was the first student to walk in, and my teacher was playing a recording of what I later learned was The Rite of Spring by Igor Stravinsky. And as I walked in, there's the opening to the piece is this very high note on the bassoon. It's a high C. And it goes on like that by itself until these clarinets come in and just sort of wave their way down chromatically. I'm listening to that, and I was mesmerized by it, absolutely mesmerized. After listening to that about 10 minutes, by then everybody else has been filing in behind me. I was oblivious to the whole thing. I didn't know the classroom had filled. I'm still standing there, basically watching the speaker, listening to the music. And the teacher stopped the recording, and he said, "So what do you think?" And I said, "I want to do that." He said, "Good, now sit down and shut up." But that was it. That was the moment that I decided I wanted to do that. I wanted to compose. And my whole focus changed.
As is customary with the SHU Band, what is your favorite flavor of ice cream?
All right. Today, it's coffee.